Hey everyone, it's Suey here, and I am down here in my basement book corner finding recommendations for a request I had by Ellen from Ellen Made Book Club. This is in a reference to my whole spiel about having crushes in books. She said she didn't read very many romancy books, and I said, you should read some more romancy books. And she said, recommend me something that's not cringy or too sweet.
She's looking at me, by the way. I'm here.
Sorry. So I thought maybe I could come down here and if anything jumps out at me that fits those parameters. So like I'm telling Tori here, she's trying to rack her brain for some on a book that she's
Going through my Goodreads.
Yeah. So I said something that's sort of not necessarily a romance book, but a book that includes a love story that could be considered crush-worthy or swoon-worthy. That's not cringy or sweet. Like not sappy sweet.
I'm getting stuck on like the swoon-worthy part. Like,
yeah, I just say that because that might help you figure out something. I don't know. So I'm going to just look for a minute in my stacks here, and then I'm going to make a pile, and then we'll come back and see what I found. Okay? So I think we're sticking with adult books for this particular video. In another video, we have talked about some lovely YA books for your reading pleasure that are not fluffy, are not surface level YA books. That's another video. So this one is focusing more on adult books that have crush-worthy characters. Now, I tend to think of the guys mostly for the crush-worthy thing. And so I know that there's tons that, might have the most awesome girls in them. But I tend to think of the guys mostly. So there's a ton in the classics section here. That's where I was looking when I was going to buy screen, this classics section right here. Some of my favorites are Elizabeth Gaskill books, North and South, and Wives and Daughters. They both have really amazing romances in them and crush-worthy, swoon-worthy characters. The guy characters for me. I don't know. The girls, I guess, can be swoon-worthy too. I just don't know. But, Mr. Thornton in this one is very famous because of the movie that What's-His-Face did, Richard Armitage. Yes. And who nailed that character like nothing else. And so very, very swoon-worthy. And this one has a great movie also. But as we know, or as you maybe don't know, Elizabeth Gaskill died before she finished this book. So you have to kind of leave the ending up to your imagination. But they did a great job in the movie figuring that out. So this has a great romance too. So good. It's not sappy sweet, and it's not cringeworthy. It's just a really great romance. And that's how all of these classics, I would consider them to be. Middlemarch I grabbed because it's like a soap opera. Also, this book too, which is, I didn't grab it. Okay, so these two are kind of similar in the fact that they're kind of saga books where you follow a family through several generations. The Middlemarch, I can't remember if you actually follow through the generations, but you live several different relationships in both these books. Some of them are toxic and some of them are awesome. So you kind of get both. And they're just soap opera-y-ish. I don't know if that's cringe-worthy to you or not, but it's a very page-turny and you get very involved and invested in these characters. So, I say all those classics are some of my favorites. Oh, and Pride and Prejudice, of course, and Persuasion by Jane Austen. Gina at the Library Mouse. She's reading Pride and Prejudice for the first time, and it blew my mind that she hasn't read it yet. So, if you guys haven't read Pride and Prejudice yet, it is time. I do not know what you're reading for. Read it now. Awesome romance. Yes. Persuasion also. But Pride and Prejudice is better. Okay, and then we have a couple of fantasies. Brandon Sanderson is not the best at romance or cringiness. Sometimes his is a little cringy, I think, but not this good romance specifically. Yeah, a little bit. Like he's not the best at writing romance. But this book, I feel like he nailed it in this Warbreaker. It is in the same world with all the others, as the Cosmere, but it's a standalone book. At least it has been for a long time. I don't know if he's added to it since I was aware, but it doesn't need to be an investment in a huge long series like you sometimes feel like with Brandon Sanderson. You can just read this one, and it is amazing and very swoony. Yes. Also, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss has one of my favorite characters of all time in it. His name is Quoth, if I'm getting that right. And, Quoth. Yes, he has sort of an unrequited love, I think, in most of the book. But he's just such a great guy and has so many awesome problems. It's not cringeworthy. It's not cringy to me. It's not sweet. It's just awesome. So if you like fantasy romance, then that's a great one. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, one of my favorite romances. Also, I don't remember the details about this book. I just remember absolutely loving it and being blown away by the romance in here. Very different from your basic love story tells. Some people might argue with me about the romance in Maybe For You by Jojo Moyes. I found it to be pretty heartwarming. I think there's others who would argue completely opposite end of the spectrum on that. So you have to read this and find out for yourself if you have not read it yet. And if you're looking for a relationship kind of a book, and see what you think. These two books are some of my favorite romances of all time. They're called A Proper Romance. So they are clean. Maybe they're a little bit too sweet. I don't know. But a Regency era kind of style feeling, kind of like Pride and Prejudice, but with tons of awesome banter. These are two separate stories. They are not connected in any way, but they're just similar Regency romance stories by Julianne Donaldson, and they are awesome. Edenbrooke and Blackmore. This is a great love story too. The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. Fikry. I always say that wrong. By Gabrielle Zevin. I've talked about this one before. It's a really awesome book about an older dude who runs a bookstore and the publisher promoter person who comes and tries to get him to take their books, and a romance into blossoming. And it's very unexpected and unusual. So it's awesome.
I think that book is full of awesome quotes.
Full of awesome quotes.
I was reading that copy, but if I had my own copy, I would have
necessarily. Really?
Yeah.
And then these two, The Shadow of the Wind and The Angel's Game, they're kind of spooky, sorts of intense, gothic-y feeling stories. And I'm pretty sure that there's romance in them. I cannot remember exactly, but it's one of those things where I'm basing it on my gut feeling that I love them because of the romance, along with their bookishness and their spookiness and the historicalness of it. They just have everything. I need to reread them so I can remember the details a little better. That's the pile I just grabbed off of the shelf randomly without thinking about it. Some really great books I loved, not necessarily only for their love stories, but their love stories were great. Tori, did you find anything on your Goodreads list that you could add to this narrative?
Sure. The Song of Achilles?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
That was romance during a war. The Trojan War. No. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Trojan War.
Yes. Not your...
Achilles and Patroclus.
Yeah. Not your typical romance, but an awesome romance.
Perhaps. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. but I can't say why. I feel like that's a spoiler.
But there might be some cool romance in there that's not cringy or
It's definitely not cringy.
sweet.
Definitely not sweet. I mean, it is. I mean, it's
Heartwarming.
bittersweet.
Oh, bittersweet. Like heartwarming and sweet are two different things, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a spoiler to
Even talk.
talk about the romance.
Okay, I need to read this one. It's up there on my shelves.
Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen. I feel like this could be on the borderline. Some people might think it's cringy. But I thought it was very good romance, where like romance was like not the main focus, but it also kind of is. I don't know. But also very swoony.
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 Yeah. Just Last Night by Mary McFarlane, or however you say her name. I feel like you say her name weird. We say that name. Mary. I say Mary, but I think it's pronounced Mary.
Parrot.
Anyway, that's another one that has romance in it, but the romance is definitely not the main plot. It's more about like grief and like a friend died, and then there's also a guy who is swooning. Perfect. Yes. And then Attachments by Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
Oh, that one's so good.
The very, very end is very cringy. But everything leading up to it,
I don't remember.
is very fun.
It's really fun.
I mean, it's kind of creepy, though. Like, if you think about that kind of sitting here in real life, it is kind of like a stalker-ish, but it's really funny. Like, laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. This one is an interesting premise. It's a historical fiction fantasy where the girl switches every day between two timelines that she's living. And so in one timeline, she's in love with this guy. And so, yeah.
What's the name of that one again?
When the Day Comes.
That sounds interesting to me.
That's the one that Megan told us to read forever ago.
I need to read that one, I think. They sound like great suggestions to me. Yeah. All right, there you go. This was specifically in request by Ellen, so hopefully she found some fun things to maybe check out from this list. Maybe she's read some and she can come back and say, you are way off, and that's not even close to what I was looking for. Or, if you are looking for something like that, and you're not Ellen, hopefully you enjoy this. Just check out Ellen. Hopefully, if you're not Ellen and you're watching, you also got something out of it and you made some lists for your TBR. All right. That was fun. I want to read all these books again. Until next time, happy reading.
Bye.